Hey guys, we're still in Mark 14. We're in the very last night of Jesus' life. And the entire night he's been trying to prepare his disciples for what's ahead of them. This is my body that will be broken. This is my blood that will be shed for many. One of you will betray me. All of you will fall away. Peter, not only will you fall away, but you'll even deny knowing me 3 times this very night. And so when they had finished up the Passover meal, they left the city. They went out to the Mount of Olives. They come to Gethsemane, which is a garden at the foot of the Mount of Olives. And so that's where we want to pick up in verse 32. Then they came to a place which was named Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took Peter, James, and John with him, and he began to be troubled and deeply distressed. And he said to them, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch." And he went a little further and fell on the ground, and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will." Jesus tells his disciples to stay at the entrance to the garden, but then he takes 3 of them, 3 of his closest friends and disciples, deeper into the garden with him to pray with him. Isn't that the kind of people that you'd want with you if you're really stressed out about something? Well, Mark says that he's troubled and deeply distressed. Jesus says that his soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. And Jesus is not prone to over-exaggerate. Jesus is not prone to be focused on himself. This was a really difficult and troubling time for Jesus. He's stressed to his limits. And Jesus does what everybody should do when we're stressed. He hits his knees and he turns to his Father and he prays. He casts his cares and his burdens upon him. And he says, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will." He says, "Take this cup from me." He's talking about the cup of God's wrath. That's an Old Testament imagery used to describe God's punishment for his enemies. Not only was Jesus going to face crucifixion, which was horrible, but he was going to face something far worse, the punishment for our sins. He was going to bear our sins in his body. Not in the sense that he's guilty of them, but in the sense that he's going to take on their punishment. That he's like a sin offering. And so the punishment that sin deserves is it's a horrible form of punishment, the worst. And Jesus was going to face that for us. And Jesus ends up saying, "Not my will, but your will." He recognized that his Father's will was what was best for him in his life, even if he has to suffer for a bit. And that's certainly an attitude and a mindset that we need to learn to develop in our own lives. Now let's pick up in verse 37. Then he came and found them sleeping and said to Peter, "Simon, are you sleeping? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and he prayed and spoke the same words. And when he returned, he found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy and they did not know what to answer him. And then he came the 3rd time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? It is enough. The hour is come. Behold, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." 3 times Jesus tells his disciples to watch and wait. But 3 times he comes back and they're dead asleep. Could you imagine facing what Jesus was about to face and saying, "I'm distressed about this. I'm looking down the barrel of God's wrath here, and I just need you to stay awake and pray with me. Can't you just do it for an hour?" But your best friends can't even stay awake. And so Jesus tells them to watch and wait, but not so much for his sake, but for theirs. Jesus knows they need spiritual strength. He knows that spiritually they're not ready for what's about to happen. And they're vulnerable because of it. Their spirit is willing, but their flesh is weak. And they're really hurting themselves not doing what Jesus tells them to do here. If you know the end of the story, they all do fall away. And Peter does deny even knowing Jesus 3 times. They're not ready, but the time has come. The betrayer is at hand.